Amicus analysis. Amicus analysis. Amicus analysis. Amicus analysis.
Okay, hello and welcome to Hammerheads, the Amicus season, and we're on episode number 5. Hello Miles, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I've just finished smoking a load of bees to death in my garden, which was quite tiring, but ultimately rewarding. How are you?
Yes, quite like the film in terms of being tiring. Ultimately not so rewarding in the case of the film.
Unrewarding.
But let's not cut to the chase just yet. Me and Miles have been going through the horror films of Amicus, and we're up to 1967, which is The Deadly Bees. And this is another film directed by Freddie Francis, and also from a short story by Robert Bloch of Psycho fame.
It was obviously working for them to work together, wasn't it? Because Robert Bloch has a few in a row. The Skull, which was a short story, which we discussed a couple of episodes ago and said that its shortcomings are that it was from a short story. The Psychopath, which is a bit better because it's got more of a filmic structure. And then this week, The Deadly Bees, which is possibly the worst of these Robert Bloch stories.
Well, to be fair to Robert Bloch, I don't think it was necessarily his fault. The film is based on a book, which is supposedly quite a good book, by H.F. Hurd. It's called A Taste for Honey, and it was, I think, one of 3 books he wrote about a sort of a pastiche of Sherlock Holmes and his brother Mycroft, kind of in their retirement. And Robert Bloch wrote a short screenplay from that, but then that was heavily reworked by a guy called Anthony Marriott, who Freddie Francis, as the director, got in. And I think that there is quite a lot going for the film before they started filming it, in the sense that Robert Bloch seems to have wanted the main protagonist to be Boris Karloff and Christopher Lee, which would have made for quite the film.
Oh wow, yes. But did they star together in anything else, those two?
I'm not sure that they did. That's a good one. I might have to look that up right in the comments. But if that had been, they just couldn't afford, Amicus couldn't afford that kind of caliber of talent. So they rewrote, or this guy called Anthony Marriott rewrote the script for different actors. And the script, I think, is probably the thing that lets the film down. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Tell me about the film, Miles.
Well, it's one of those films that it's easy to slag off, I think, because it's it's a very Roger Corman-esque exploitation film. But then so are a lot of films I love. So things like Piranha by Joe Dante, which is a Roger Corman film. And they make the most of a cheesy idea and a Jaws ripoff. The Deadly Bees is most decidedly a The Birds ripoff, right down to the beginning opening title card with bees superimposed and the noise of bees. It's sort of like Hitchcock. You have birds and the birds. The Birds, which is incidentally one of my favourite movies, but it has that B movie thing going for it. But the thing about birds is when birds come for you, it's genuinely scary. Because imagine, you love birds. They're quite passive and pretty. And imagine if they just kind of like fired at you with their beaks, you'd be like, you wouldn't last long. Whereas bees are obviously lovely creatures and important creatures on planet Earth. But one of them in your trousers is not very nice,
I got quite worried about a bee yesterday. It's coming on to October, and it's a very late season. The bees tend to be absolutely massive, and there was just one hovering around me, just like quite docile and slow, but just wouldn't leave me alone the other day. And it was like the size of, what was it the size of? Like $1 coin or something like that. It was huge.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, and the saddest thing about bees is that when they decide to, or they use their stinger to defend themselves, they die. which is quite sad. Whereas wasps can just go at you all day. Although I've come to realize over the summer that wasps are very. I've underrated the wasp because I saw one killing a fly the other day, and I looked it up, and they kill so many insects, and also they're quite intelligent. And I've noticed this by if you're ever in a room with a wasp, open the window and show it the window, and it will go. It's amazing. Whereas if you open a window and a fly is in the room, it just whacks itself against the glass until you have to go, oh, for God's sake, get a cup. And, so wasps are quite clever. Bees, obviously, are very important for the planet. They pollinate flowers and make honey. And so it would be quite shocking if bees suddenly turned against us. But bees
don't adjust your radios. You've not tuned into a David Attenborough Wildlife special or something.
Bees are truly a wonder for the planet Earth.
They are not scary in movies, bees. And I thought this movie was, first of all, when I heard The Deadly Bees, I was like, I might have seen this. Then I thought, no. It's the 70s movie, The Swarm I've seen.
Swarm, isn't that?
Oh, Queen Allen. Yes, but it isn't, because I looked it up and went, no, none of this sounds familiar at all. They blow them up with an explosion at the end. No, I was like, no, in my film that I saw, which is with my friend Pete next door, we used to go around and watch all this stuff his dad had taped off the telly, and he loved horror movies. It was... At the beginning, there's a black girl dressed in red, and she's running across a field, whistling or making a noise, and the bees go for it. And the plot is, they're attracted to red and noise. So at the end, they lure them with this red VW Beetle out to a stadium, and then they turn the temperature right down so it freezes all the bees, which is just ridiculous. So there's a scene with a VW Beetle going through a town, like shepherded by the police, and they just drive the car right into, and the film ends with a bee like gradually like dying. And I looked it up, and it's called The Savage Bees.
That sounds a much better film. Should we talk about that?
Well, I don't know if it's a better film. It's more... I think it's more even more exploitation in that there are action scenes and swooping cameras, and so it probably is a better film, actually. But so The Deadly Bees, it starts, and I kind of, with a due sense of sort of trepidation, I kept going with it. I was like, okay, after 20 minutes, I was like, yeah, it's clear the bee attacks are just going to be really, really pants and superimposed bees, very badly done, over shots of people going, oh, and I knew that lovely dog was going to die. And I looked it up. I looked it up on Does the Dog Die? Because
you don't like
very true.
It's die, do you? I know.
I don't, because there's such... Well, I mean, I'm a dog person. I have a dog who I love dearly, and they always kill off dogs in horror films. And every time I watch a horror film and there's a dog in it, I'm like, don't kill it off. And I watched one the other day. No, it was a series actually called Wayward with Mae Martin, which is very good. And there's a dog in it, and it's really great because they use the dog throughout the series to discover things, and he's really clever. He found something. He's found something else. The dog's run off because he's found something, and he ends up being like a real character. And I'm like, that's how you use a dog in a movie. Don't just kill it off. So anyway, the death
didn't care when Mary Hargrove died in the film, or Doris Hawkins. Just the dog.
Oh, screw them. They're actors. I always think of dogs as dogs are such innocents, and they just do what they're told, and so. If it dies sort of protecting its owner and stuff, it's just very sad. They're just so bloody cute, So yeah, the dog dies quite early, and yeah, the woman, she and her husband are just really, really miserable with each other for the whole movie, and she's just feeding the dog, and he's swanning about like Lord of the Manor, isn't he?
It's a bizarre premise because the whole thing starts in like a music studio with this.
Yeah,
pop sensation. I think Rollins filming a new video called "Stop the Music."
Yeah,
bit of a murder. She's having a bit of a breakdown because she's been working too.
Yeah.
They never really tell you why she's been working too hard, and the fact that she's a pop star and has been working too hard never really comes into the film. Again, they never sort of use that as a big at least it's
very broad strokes, isn't it? Yeah, and it reminded me of that whichever Hammer film it was we watched, where it's all very groovy daddy-o as we go into the 60s.
And we know that Ski and what's his name? The Amicus directors, producers used to work a lot with sort of these 50s music films, so they tend to flip music in. But actually the band is an English band who were playing at the start in that first scene
called the birds, not the American birds, the British birds. And I was wondering if that was kind of almost a reference to the film The Birds as well.
Oh, maybe. I mean, maybe it's not by accident. Yeah. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it was so much like the birds in terms of construction and the attacks, and you probably line the two up. And at one point, the lead is dressed in a very similar dress to Tippi Hedren, a very similar green suit,
Yeah.
and gets attacked, and then recovers in bed and is like swiping away at the air. And I'm like, that's just ripped off the birds. Clearly, it's too similar.
I think that's one thing I'd say about the film that is good. I mean, it's again the set dressing and the color schemes and but we know that Freddie Francis is kind of more of a cinematographer anyway. But
Well, that's it. It's a good movie. It's a bad movie made by a good director. Yeah, that's what it is. And I loved the way it looked, and I loved the sets and the color grade and the film stock and everything. Yeah, that's a positive.
Well, I think Freddie Francis wasn't a fan of horror films generally anyway, so you can get it. The next weird thing, apart from the lead protagonist being a pop star, is that her manager decides to send her to an island, I think, to recuperate. So she gets sent to this island, which seems to have 5 inhabitants, and 2 of those inhabitants seem to run the pub. I can't work out how the pub made any money if there's only these 5 people on the island, but.
It's classic, isn't it? It's like one of those, it's sort of like a local hero vibe where there only seems to be about 3, although there's loads of people in that movie, obviously. But yeah, a Wicker Man but even that's got like, there's 50 people to crammed in the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a community, isn't it? But 5 people, it's like a grumpy guy. She walks in, this is how you make your money.
And he's a Reliant behind the bar, isn't it? He's a kind of stately Hammer and horror films generally.
Yeah, he's great, the bar guy, and she goes to stay in this island, and she sort of like shacks up with Mary and Mr. Hargrove, who's just like this sort of pompous, oh, don't be so ridiculous, darling, sort of guy who you're supposed to hate for the whole movie. I think when it starts, you're like, what a pompous prick. And they come and have some help to stay to help with the new guest, and the help is like an attractive young lady, and he's really flirty with it, and you're like, oh, he's a bit of a one, isn't he? So it's clearly like what I got from it, that he was a philandering git, and he'd driven poor Mary mad by the fact that she's staying at home doing the knitting and the cooking, and he's out swanning with the sort of 2 pretty ladies on the island.
They laid it on so thick with his character being so horrendous that immediately you think this guy can't possibly be the murderer because they're laying it on so thick.
Yeah, it was like all clues point to it not being the person they're pointing at for the first half hour. And we knew when we met, this strange guy later on, we were like, well, it's probably him, isn't it? But I did think that the setup, that's the thing, fundamentally, it's not a flawed movie in terms of structure, character, pacing, that kind of thing. But it's almost like if you took out the bee attacks, which literally are just shots of bees, which again are not scary, even if you zoom in on a bee, it's not scary. And take out the shots where there's just superimposed bees over the shot of someone or a dog.
Wait, take all that bees around.
Yeah. I mean, this is what they did with Piranha as well. They had like rubber piranhas on a thing, and they just wiggled them around, and they did it all in post. You could tell they filmed people thrashing about, and then they just put in these shots of rubber fish wiggling about and had this noise every time they attacked. It just got really tiresome after a while. You're like, the rest of it was fine, but the reason you go see the film, which is bee attacks, was so bad it really doesn't justify the price of admission.
But I think also they don't give you sort of any emotional engagement with the characters. Like, you don't know enough about the pop singer to really got to be fighting for her corner. And then the Hargrove is such a horrendous character, and the other beekeeper on the island, who is Manfred, I think. He's just so weird that you're like, oh, I don't really kind of get him either.
So weird, and like it's almost like Mary is the sort of unsung hero. Like she could have been a character. It would have been an interesting story, I think, if you had Mary, the long-suffering wife,
Yeah.
with a kind of gittish, philandering husband, and she's so bored she decides to start investigating what goes on, rather than this pop star. They obviously wanted to sort of crowbar this pop star plot in where Vicky comes in and she's recuperating, and it's a very silly plot device to have her visit the island, I think.
But they don't really kind of. I would be able to forgive that if they'd followed that up like somehow. But I kind of wondered if there was going to be even some kind of reference to bees being busy or something, and her being too busy or something like that. It was like,
if it had had a smart script, it would have been. You could have made, as a scriptwriter, I know you can make quite a lot of not very much. If you put a few witticisms in there and a few little, like you say, little funny, clever plays on words and stuff, or have it be funny. That's why I love horror comedies, because horror comedies, they can scare you, but they can also have characters not being so sort of serious and boring, and as everyone is in this movie, there's no humor in it at all.
No.
And, even Christopher Lee was funny as Dracula. He would say things, that you would laugh at because you're like, oh, wow, he's gonna kill her now, but he's, not like sort of Freddy Krueger witticisms, but there was humor in it, and there didn't seem to be any humor in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, the only kind of nod towards that, I mean, it's kind of a weird setup as well. You get this ministry at the start where they're receiving letters from somebody a beekeeper saying he's invented these deadly bees, and yeah, they just think he's a crank, and then he's writing back and saying, if you don't get back to me and get in touch, then I'm gonna prove to you that I'm gonna murder some of the locals to prove that I've invented these deadly bees. It's like, well, that's a bit weird.
It's a bit weird, and I suppose the only...
You can go to South London or something and kind of take bees and show them.
Yeah, instead of this remote island with no one, and who this Vicky happens to be visiting, and it's all a bit... I mean, it wasn't carefully thought through, I don't think. It's not a strong plot. But, when things really start... No, things really start amping up when Vicky teams up with Manfred, and they think it's Hargrove, so they're like, let's check out his house. He's created this fear pheromone that is attracting the bees, and they're going to kill everybody, and it's Hargrove. I'm like, you seem to know an awful lot about this, Manfred.
Smell of
the smell of fear is then, and Vicky sort of inevitably gets attacked in her room, and then she sort of, that's the sort of birds bit where she's flapping about, and then they gradually realize that it's not Hargrove, because of the way Manfred's like, we must go and collect evidence from, in other words, plant evidence, and to frame Hargrove. And Vicky sort of like, yeah, so she starts investigating, and at that point she starts to have a personality. Like, what? Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of detective-y sort of subplot, which doesn't really carry the movie.
There is, and there's kind of that happens quite a lot in Amicus films. They do try and involve the audience, and we'll see this particularly when we get to The Beast Must Die towards the end of
Eve's Sexiness, yes.
There is that. I mean, even in Dr. Terror's House of whatever it's called,
it was,
you're kind of, as the audience, you're kind of working out that he is death, basically. He's there, that twist as well. So yeah, there's a lot of that in the Amicus films, and it could have been more engaging if it wasn't so bloody obvious.
It's funny. It could have been like, if you watch Piranha, which was Joe Dante's first directorial film, and Joe Dante, he's one of my favorite film directors. He grew up. He came up working for Roger Corman. He used to cut trailers for him, and he used to sort of sort the vision. And then he said, right, Roger Corman went, can you do a Jaws ripoff? And, eventually he did. And eventually Joe Dante ended up making some of my favorite movies ever, Gremlins and Inner Space and Matinee and so forth. But he started out making this kind of movie. And because he was such a talent, he put this sort of B-movie knowing nod in there, whereas Amicus obviously done a few portmanteau movies, and then they were trying to do something to sort of rival Hammer and go, well, we've got something here that's a genre piece that's a bit like The Birds, and it's going to really be, and I can imagine them promising, rampant bee attacks in the marketing of people going, oh.
Afterbound's interesting. The first bee attack was so bad, and in fact, I think the problem was the way that the actress reacted. That she just
the actress, yeah,
stood there with what looked like bees sellotape to her face.
Yeah,
didn't run and didn't try and get inside, and it was really
And then the dog, it just seems it's sort of there's a shot of the dog looking into space with the bees superimposed over him, and then they just find him lying there with a few sort of bees on him. It wasn't, and I'm glad it wasn't gorier than that, because that would, if they'd actually like put bees all over a dog, and I would have been like, no. So
bees tend to sting dogs anyway, because we had a friend who disturbed her. Like bees with her walking the dog, and the dog got away with very little in the way of bites because of the hair can be quite. I was going to say it's the hair, isn't it?
It's if dogs chew bees, then that's another. You get those horrible, poor sad pictures that the dogs going to effect with their mouth like this or their nose like this. I did have to shoo a wasp away from Edgar earlier today, so it does happen in real life. Maybe it was just like an omen for this, but. So yeah, it's as I said earlier, it's very easy to slag this one off because it's ridiculous. I think it's got like 4.1 on IMDb, and I went, oh, here we go. Whereas all the other Amicus ones more or less have got 6 to 7, which generally indicates they're gonna be fun. Not for everybody, but they're going to be fun. Whereas it's got 4.1, and I really think we should watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000. Parody of this, because they're so funny. They are, they just sit and comment sarcastically throughout the whole movie. I think now we've watched the film itself, we should just sit. I think it's all on YouTube. Sit and watch them just redubbing it and slagging it off and stuff, because they're so funny. That there was one they did, and I can't remember what film it was, but there's a running joke in it where the guy kept going, Steve, and it became this running joke on the commentary every time something happened. It's Steve, and then there's one point the girl looks at the camera and the guy goes, Steve, so I don't know what they'll do with the deadly bees, but they'll probably be like the Woody Allen film we watched, What's Up, Tiger Lily?
Yeah.
Where they change all the dialogue and do their own commentary and stuff. They've done this for the deadly bees, so we'll have to watch that.
I mean, it's, no reflection on Robert Bloch, and he was very gracious.
No.
But I don't think he ever saw the film because he saw the screenplay change so much, and...
again, yeah. They always did that to him, didn't they?
And again, he was very, he didn't say anything derogatory about the writer who'd taken it on. He did sort of say the screenplay had been improved past recognition.
Yeah. That's most of his involvement with Amicus seems to be that kind of, oh yeah, they took it and they did this, there's nothing I could do about it, so hey ho. That seems to be his attitude to working with, particularly Freddie Francis.
Yeah, it's weird because obviously this is a proven screenwriter,
yes,
who has had commercial success at the box office, and then to take it away from him and not involve him in reading it for different actors just seems very weird.
Especially Psycho, which is one of the greatest movies ever made. Not just greatest horror, but it's one of the greatest movies ever made. Psycho. I mean, Hitchcock had this amazing way of making art out of anything. Psycho is an arty horror film, but it is also incredibly influential on everything. But, if you're going to rip off Psycho, yes, fine, use Robert Bloch, but let him write the script, and then leave it, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I think Deadly Bees, I think it fully deserves its 4.1 on IMDb. I think, I don't think it was even that entertaining. That's the problem. Is a lot of the films we've watched so far is like, this is quite fun. Oh, I'm quite into this. After an hour, you're like, oh, well, there's 20 minutes left. This is quite jolly. And then, there's a big fight in a fire and da-da-da. Yeah, quite enjoyed. But this one, I was like, oh, please end.
Yeah. It wasn't kind of emotionally engaging or involving. It wasn't funny. It wasn't well plotted or clever. So let's never speak of it again.
It's always like when we were going through the list, we deliberately cut out the sci-fi ones because we wanted to stick to horror because it's a horror podcast. But we had to do Deadly Bees because it's a horror film. But yeah, I sort of wished we had skipped this one. But I think it's the one dud so far that you like you say, it is nicely shot mostly.
I think that we're going to find Amicus is the portmanteaus are going to be the greats, and with that in mind,
Yes.
next time we will be covering the 1967 film Torture Garden, which again is directed by Freddie Francis, but it is a portmanteau film.
Yes. Do you know, one thing I forgot to mention about the Deadly Bees is that the guy in the court later on, the clerk of the court, did you recognise him?
Oh yeah, the guy out of Fawlty Towers. I was thinking.
Yeah, that fit. And he looked very young in this, but I just loved that guy's voice. I mean, he's a classic British actor. He's the kind of guy my dad would go, "Oh, it's old, and
he's the guy that John Cleese mistakes for the hotel inspector. Yeah.
Yeah, and he goes, "I sell outboard motors." He got this great, fussy voice that he'd. I've nothing to do with any hotel guide. That's how he sounds. He's amazing.
And many bees. Yeah. I work with wasps.
Yeah. So that was the last thing I wanted to mention, is that he was the one guy in it. I was like, it's that guy from Fawlty Towers.
Hi.
But Torture Garden, yes, I'll look forward to that. We've got some real classics coming up actually in the next few episodes. There's some real films that Amicus is known for. I don't think Deadly Bees is one of them, but I mentioned it again, sorry. But yes, it was and I rented it because I got rid, because you can watch it for free on Plex, but it was so annoying having the words commercials. That's one you'll never get back. £2.49, mate. £2.49 on YouTube. I don't know, but it was fun while it lasted. It wasn't. I wanted it to end. When it ended, I went and got a big, heavy cup of coffee and went, "Oh my god." Anyway, that was fun. Next time, Havage Garden. I nearly said they're a band.
Torture Garden. Yeah, and there's
Torture Garden.
some Peter Cushing. There's Jack Palance.
Jack Palance, pick up the gun. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed it so far. If you haven't listened to the last 4 episodes, catch up now. Some of them are quite short, like this one. And we'll see you next time on Amicus Analysis. Sorry, Hammerheads.
See you there.